I'm also going to just straight up drop in a laugh track on that Risk It for the Biscuit line. Sitcom, studio, audience, canned laughter, kicking up.
Use the one from iCarly as well as a playful reference to a classic 2000s Nickelodeon sitcom.
You know, I said earlier that I'm a decrepit old man, not something that I
Drake and Josh, then.
From when? Come on now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Nothing But the Toot, the podcast about Mastodon that I record because of an unbelievable loophole in our criminal justice system where this counts toward my 500 hours of community service. My name is Jackdaw Ruiz. I am your humble usher. I am your private dancer. I'm your host on this show. This is the second episode of this mess. I didn't plan on doing a second episode, but at this point, the money is simply too good, and greed has a hold of my heart. As you may have correctly assumed, I'm totally fucking podcast rich now. Just absolutely balling out of control. Hold on a second. Alright, check this out. I just paid 200 G's on a studio upgrade to install a button that does this.
Jackdaw Ruiz has landed.
In this episode, I talked to Lynne, aka Lynnesbian. I connected with Lynne because I find her terrifically interesting. There are plenty of folks that I could ask for explanations or commentary on various facets of the Fediverse, but only a fraction of the people conversant on those topics have the humor and the personality you find following Lynne's account. We talk about the automated bot accounts that she maintains for users, allowing each of us to fall in love with some beautiful Turing test flunking simulacrum of ourselves. We discuss the comparatively more democratized development process of Pleroma versus Mastodon, and the associated upsides and downsides that go with that. And relevant to recent news, we even get into what I would describe as the most trenchant conversation you'll hear this week about computer security and cryptography. I started the interview asking for Lynne's take on technical matters, and by the end, I gradually realized it was just as interesting to hear her discuss the conflicts and the friendships and the human interaction that these platforms can facilitate. Well, after blowing all my money on the air horn button,
Jackdaw Ruiz has landed.
In what was a very sound, very good investment, I forgot to purchase the $2 slider needed for my mixing board, allowing for a proper transition into the interview. So we're going in raw dog on this, just going to drop in as abruptly as possible. All right, hello everybody. We are in the studio, and I am talking with Lynne. Lynne, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing great. Just wonderful. Having a good old time on Nothing But the Toot, episode 2.
It is episode 2. We are back. We have better production value. I have brought in a fleet of interns for no other reason than to act absolutely monstrous toward them. They're not even doing actual work, I'm just lining them up for verbal berating.
I've noticed that, yes.
Lynne, can you tell us the instance that you were on?
It would be my own instance, actually, fedi.lynnesbian.space. There are about, I think, 15 accounts on them, and there are 15 accounts on it, and about 12 of them belong to me, so...
That makes me immediately curious about the 3 that are not you, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But
Okay.
I think one of the reasons that makes you an interesting person to chat with is that the Mastodon platform makes a number of options available to users, and they don't have to necessarily exercise those options. They don't have to do those things. You are a user that is taking advantage of those, like you are self-hosting on your own
Right.
instance.
Right. Yeah.
For a quick explanation on that, what are some of the differences you've implemented on your instance that are not going to be experienced by people on instances that are just running default settings?
There are really only three changes. There is the Mastodon elephant at the bottom left has been replaced by the infamous trans emoji, whatever you say in your regional dialect. Um, the word toot has been actually replaced with the word shit, so that when someone like tries to remotely interact with the content, it'll say like, "Do you wish to boost this shit?" or view shits and replies, and other such
Mm-hmm.
hilarious
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hijinks such as that. And the final difference is that the character limit, instead of 500, which is the default for Mastodon, it is 65,535.
Is that an arbitrary number, or is that where something caps out?
That is the highest number you can store with a unsigned 16-bit integer, which sounds like it means something in the relevance to Mastodon, but it actually doesn't. I just chose it because I'm a nerd and I thought it was funny.
The other accounts on there, when you say, like a dozen of them are you, what's the breakdown on that? Are they just are they you for actual posting, or
Well, two of them are for actual posting. There is the one called Dissociation, which is where I very, very infrequently post like kind of short form horror stories, first person, second person stuff. The other one is Lynnesbian, which it's in the name. It does what it says on the tin. I'll say that. That is where, if one wishes, one can view the infamous Boon deck that has been so widely discussed and debated.
I'm happy that you got to that because at one point, sooner or later, I was going to have to ask for a pronunciation on Boone. I thought that there was a slim chance it's like a long E, like it's still somehow pronounced bunny
There
and
are
spelled.
multiple pronunciations which are all correct. There is Boon, Bune, Bunny, Bune. You can say whatever you want, really, as long as it's, not doggy. You can't do that.
I
You just
didn't
can't.
want to pronounce it doggy until this very moment. Now there's nothing else that I desire more.
Perhaps we'll have to bleep this part out of the podcast so that the viewers don't try and do.
If people are familiar with you beyond your own toots or your own content, is it safe to say that perhaps the next most likely reason you are the maven that has set up the bot accounts for a number of users? Is that right?
I'm quite widely known for that. People will just come to me and say like, "Hey, I asked where all the bots came from, and someone said contact Lynne." I said, "Who is Lynne?" They said, "What do you mean, who's Lynne?" They linked to your account, so here I am. And I'll be like, "Yeah, okay," because originally the bots. Okay, so I didn't actually make the code, to be honest. So someone else made Mastodon ebooks, I think it's called.
Uh-huh.
Jesse Jane, however that's pronounced. The code was, we'll say, Spartan, so I decided to fork it and modify it and change it to be my own. So I added a bunch of new features. I wouldn't say I rewrote it, but I use it as a framework and I made a lot of changes from it. And the idea was that one would download this code onto their computer, then execute it, and their computer would host their bot. So, say Bob's bot runs on Bob's computer, and Jane's bot is on Jane's computer, and everyone's computer has their own bot. But I thought, well, it's a bit complex, because to set up the bot, you have to download Python and pip and install these libraries, and it's just, it's a bit complicated. So I thought, for people who don't want to go through that hassle, I could host some of the bots for my close friends, and I would maybe do 5 at the most. That didn't go as planned.
No, no.
Because
From the moment that you started talking about this, a sense of exasperation immediately crept into your voice.
yeah, yeah. So the idea was just for close friends, but then so I made it for a couple people, and then other people wanted theirs as well, and it was like, well, I'm not just gonna say I don't know who you are. Don't even talk to me. I have 1,000 followers. You only have 20. I don't care about you. So I was like, I better do this because I don't want to seem like a dick. So I did it for a lot of people, and the number kept going up, and it was getting absolutely ridiculous because when I create a bot, it's not just like I press a button. It's like I got to create an account on Bots in Space and upload the profile picture and sign it. It's a whole hassle. So I created scripts that automate some of the process for me. So like at this point, I have a folder full of I think 106 bots that I run for people, and I have scripts that just like mass disable or enable them so I can quickly turn them off if my server's dying, because it frequently is dying because it is not a very powerful server. It's not supposed to be running 100 bots, but that's how it turned out. And so now I have scripts to mass manage them, I have scripts to make services, I have a website with a form on it where you can request bots from me and it sends me a message. Like, I've automated so much of this process because I end up spending so much time doing it, which is not at all the intent, but that is how it turned out.
I hear what you're doing, in that you were trying to preemptively guilt me out of requesting a bot from you. And it's not going to work. I won't be deterred. I've never been good with social cues, and I will barrel right through this.
I can make the first bot to be made live on the podcast.
We can stop beating around the bush and address the unacknowledged koala in the room. You are Australian, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
How's that work out for you?
It's I don't know how to answer that. It works out well, I guess. We have either the second best or the best healthcare in the world, I can't tell. That is where the benefits end. The rest of it is terrible. There are very few countries in the Southern Hemisphere, I will say that. Very few... Okay, let me rephrase this. America is, like, the main country. Like, whenever... There's
I like
only
where
one
this
country
description is going.
There's only one country in the world that uses miles and Fahrenheit, and that country is America. And yet, people use Fahrenheit all the time. Online websites default to Fahrenheit. Places just give you things in miles because that's the default, because America is the default country. And then even Mastodon, like, will give you posts in, it's the American one, month, day, year notation. It's like, it's the default country. So Australia, by being in the opposite hemisphere, is very different. There's a lot of differences between Australia and America. One of them is the seasons are, from an American perspective, the wrong way around. We have different... we use metric instead of imperial, and the biggest difference...
For having seasons on the opposing side of the calendar, are you just doing that to stand out? Is that just like a cry for attention?
I would say yes. But the thing is, when you go to Australia and it's Christmas, everyone has, like, you know, snowman decorations, and it's like there's snow time like Christmas time, and it's like, it doesn't snow here. It barely ever snows, and it doesn't snow at all in Christmas because it's summer, so people don't really seem to care much about... Okay, to be honest, I'm just ranting about Christmas decorations now.
Lynne, you sound demoralized by maintaining an army of bots. You sound defeated by living in Australia, and then hopefully by the end of the interview, we are going to go to so many dark places that it's just going to climax in a terrible, nihilistic, dark evening of the soul. To get appropriate momentum for that, we're going to take a break, do a commercial, come back and get into it. Sound good?
All right. Sounds good.
All right, we'll be back in just one moment.
All right.
November 21st, 1962, Fort Worth, Texas. On the day before the Kennedy assassination, future President and current CIA operative George H.W. Bush places a phone call to a sandwich shop in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The call lasts precisely 14 minutes and 84 seconds.
Connect the dots.
October 9th, 1974, Dearborn, Michigan. A chocolate Labrador named Duke begins barking in fluent Russian. After consulting an interpreter, it's discovered that Duke is providing the exact coordinates of a buried ham bone.
Follow the money.
May 27th, 1924, Budapest, Hungary. A pyramid of flawless black obsidian is seen levitating above the Danube River. The next morning, every man, woman, and child awakens with a ridiculous handlebar mustache. Just fucking preposterous.
Uncover the truth.
December 3rd, 1978, Washington, D.C. Henry Kissinger excuses himself from a meeting to use a restroom adjacent to the conference room on the 8th floor of the Fairfax Hotel to take a monster dump. He is absent for exactly 22 minutes. Custodial staff would later submit a sworn affidavit stating that the men's room was out of order and entirely non-functional that week.
Where did he poop?
July 4th, 1996, Stone Mountain, Georgia. Absolutely nothing noteworthy happened.
Pull back the veil.
March 11th, 2029, Moon Station Phobos. With all reserves of helium isotope 3 depleted, you engage the quantum entanglement failsafe to send a distress message rippling backward in time, hoping to transmit a recipe for soy-glazed wonton noodles.
Rich umami flavor.
August 8th, 2012, New York City, New York. Blue Apron is founded, making it possible to receive fresh and healthy meal preparation kits for Spanish spiced chickpeas, kale pesto pasta, and yes, soy-glazed wonton noodles.
Enter code JACKDAW for 70% off.
BlueApron.com.
Welcome back. I am talking with Lynne. Lynne, I am going to ask you to effectively play tour guide through some of the corners of Mastodon and the Fediverse at large here.
Sure, I can do my best.
I think your best is better than I deserve. Now, to kind of get into the appropriate mindset on explaining some of these topics, step into the theater of the mind for a moment, and let's pretend that I'm a dum-dum, that I am the type of person that ranks operating systems based entirely on how pleasant I find the default startup noise, or that I'm the type of person that refers to my desktop as my screensaver.
Okay.
Or that I'm the type of person where when talking about computers, I just substitute the word download in for absolutely any other verb. Example, my HDMI cable got frayed and now won't download my screensaver correctly. Just try to meet my level on that with some of these answers. Lynne, what is Linux? Go.
Okay, the easiest way to answer that is it's like an alternative to Windows or macOS. It's the thing that runs your. I feel like a total, like a nerd trying to get grandma to install Linux on a little EPC when all she wants to do is watch YouTube and play Bejeweled.
So you're telling me that it will run Bejeweled or no?
It runs Bejeweled 3 in Wine without the hardware accelerated effects, unfortunately, but it does run Bejeweled, yeah.
Okay, no dice. Now, some commonly used words are quietly anagrams, like scuba, actually an anagram for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Laser is an anagram for light-emitting diode. What is Linux an anagram for?
Well, I don't think we're actually supposed to tell the people who don't use it that, but I can tell you that the X stands for extreme, If I tell you any more, Richard Stallman will be on to me.
I should have known Stallman was behind this. Now, depending on how some people use Mastodon, there's potentially a walled garden quality to it, where if they predominantly just engage with users on their instance, or with just a discrete list of follows and followers, that can really constitute the entirety of the experience. I think that's what makes it so easy to see that misconception when people mistake Mastodon for being the entirety of the Fediverse.
Single website, yeah.
Right. Can...
Very suspect. Sorry, just clearing my throat.
Can you give a quick explanation of what the Fediverse is beyond the platform of Mastodon?
So you've got several instances. You've got knzk.me. You've got, you don't have both anymore. You have mastodon.social, you have witches.live, you have all these instances, just in the same way that you have Gmail, Yahoo Mail, Microsoft one, Hotmail. No, they don't call it that anymore. Outlook Live? Microsoft one. And, you can all talk to each other. Like, even if I'm on Gmail, I can still talk to someone on Yahoo Mail by sending them an email to their @yahoo.com. And that's similar to how the Fediverse works. Even though I'm not on KNZK, I can talk to someone who's on it. Yeah, I can talk to someone who's on it, and we can all communicate with each other, and it's not a single website. You know how with email, you can send an email from, like, a Thunderbird or Outlook or Evolution or whatever you want to use, and we've got a similar thing going on here. We've got Mastodon, and then we've also got Pleroma, which is a different software that uses the same implementation of the underlying thing that Mastodon uses to talk to other Mastodons and other Pleromas. Then we've also got all the ones nobody actually uses, like Friendica, Hubzilla, Gango, Nextcloud Social, like just all the shit nobody actually uses.
So the Fediverse is effectively this means of communication, and then the platforms like Mastodon. In the analogy you have a concept like email, and then the way people use different email clients like Outlook or whatever, that's their entry point to it. Like we happen to be on Mastodon. I am glad in that explanation that you briefly mentioned Pleroma. Can you at first give me an anodyne and sterile explanation of what Pleroma is? And when you conclude with that, can you segue into just giving me an editorialized and totally uncensored explanation of what Pleroma is?
I just gotta do some research. Right, my research is done. So Pleroma is just a different way to do the same thing Mastodon does. It talks with ActivityPub, which is the underlying protocol. It talks with the same protocol, but it does it in a different way. Like on Pleroma, you can have formatting. You can actually have bold text and italic text, which you can't do on Mastodon. Gargaron, please add. Pleroma defaults to having 5,000 characters rather than 500 characters. There's just and also this is the boring nerd part. There's a lot of differences between the way that Mastodon and Pleroma work. Like Mastodon splits itself. Mastodon has a lot of dependencies. Like when you install Mastodon, it also uses Sidekick and PG Hero and all this stuff that all works together to give you Mastodon. All this stuff working together. Whereas Pleroma is a very singular, self-contained, lightweight, agile kind of piece of software that you can't run Mastodon on a Raspberry Pi. Like you just can't. But Pleroma, you actually can do that. That's actually feasible because it's a lot more lightweight, and also the way that it stores things. Like, I don't want to get too much into the boring shit.
So what I'm hearing in your sterile description is that some features are a little different. The way that it runs on its back end is a little more lightweight and agile, allowing it to run on less powered or less capable machines. So that's kind of a quick summation on that. The second part of that question, what would your wholly editorialized or spicy hot take on Pleroma be?
Hot take would be that people get very upset about a lot. Because you have wonderful little havens, such as free speech extremist and smug lolly and all that. I don't like saying that word, but all that shit. You have all the shitty Pleroma instances because Pleroma is a lot easier to set up and maintain than Mastodon. Like with Mastodon, you've got to install a bunch of shit, and then that stuff installs other stuff, and then it's a hassle. But with Pleroma, it's very easy to install. There's a very simple guide, which means more people can use it. It's also lower cost, which again, more people can use it, more people can host it. The barrier of entry is lower, which means that a lot of good people that wouldn't have been able to use Mastodon can use it, but it also means a lot of bad people who wouldn't. Like, it's a neutral thing. But what it has led to is, yes, a lot of crappy Pleroma instances like free speech extremists, and these things are certainly not unique to Pleroma by any means. We have barrag.net, we have Libidon, we have Albin.social, New Jack City, like that. There are all these shitty ones that run on Mastodon as well. It's just, the thing is that everyone a lot of people use Mastodon, and it's the Mastodon crowd that's getting angry at Pleroma. Obviously, the Pleroma crowd wouldn't be getting angry at itself, so people see that the thing that they aren't associated with is doing bad stuff, and they go and attack it. But when people see the thing that they are associated with is doing bad stuff, they don't attack it. They just ignore it and say, that's not Mastodon's fault, because obviously it's not Mastodon's fault. That's, these people's fault. But when Pleroma is used, people say, it is Pleroma's fault. Pleroma is Nazi software. Pleroma... it just gets really shitty, because people don't use Pleroma, so they feel like they can say whatever about it. And I feel really sorry for the Pleroma devs, because I actually follow a few of them, and some of them even follow me. I'm pretty sure in fact, I think all of the major Pleroma developers are actually like LGBT+. They're queer people. Like, it's not Nazi software. It's made by queer people. It incorporates. It's just a different approach, and people use it for shitty things.
Do they have a concern publicly or furtively about that reputation snowballing?
Yes, they do. They want to distance themselves. From what I've seen, anyway, I've seen some of the posts from some of the people some of the time, and this is my own interpretation, so this is at all not, set in stone or anything, but from what I've seen, yes, they definitely want to distance themselves from this. We actually don't see a lot of the criticism of Pleroma. The stuff that we see is people calling it Nazi software, like evil stuff for the alt-right. Some of the stuff we don't see is that people are calling it Pleroma, is that people on the far right call Pleroma like social justice warrior software, because it implements much more capable and advanced blocking features than Mastodon does. It implements like advanced word filters, whereas Mastodon has a very basic filtering system. It lets you like replace text in line. It has rules where you can reject media if it falls into a certain criteria. Like, it has very advanced blocking rules, and that's caused people to call it SJW software. Like, how dare you block people? How dare you defederate the Fediverse? It's evil. So they get a lot of shit from a lot of people.
So you brought up in that answer the ease of entry for people to get into it, either through simplicity or cost or availability of resources. I will take a running start at this and back up and explain a little bit about my background to kind of contextualize the question. But for the Mastodon user base, I'm on the older side, because I'm in this demographic between the age of 35 and 75 years old.
Right.
And that means that I first became very online in the mid-90s. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe, telnetting to BBSs off the shoulder of Orion, getting in flame wars on Usenet's alt.space.tenhausergate.
Right. The analogy's starting to break down a bit, but yes.
All those GeoCities gone like tears in the rain. I was a nerd during that window of time when things like AOL blew up and people started getting online, and then more and more people started getting online. And when I'm interacting with people who I guess are my online contemporaries now of a similar background, similar age, I catch whiffs of this mentality that the internet back then was pristine and perfect, and it got proportionately shittier as it became increasingly popular. And I think one component of that, I have a couple of different ways where I dissect that opinion when I hear it from people. Where first, there's the natural human inclination to lean into nostalgia and just put on those rose-colored glasses. So whenever people are talking about the past, that is going to be a factor. And then the other thing that I'm concerned that I hear in that is the early internet was very homogenized. Because of the barriers to entry, the people you were interacting with had a much higher likelihood of being like you. They were either technologically capable / curious folks, or they were in academia, or they worked professionally in a technology field. And what people are, I think, sometimes remembering when looking back so fondly on that is really just a sense that they were around people that more closely mirrored them.
That makes sense.
So, springing off from that, would you say Mastodon and the Fediverse at large currently have a higher than average threshold of technical know-how or internet savvy just to get into and just to engage with?
I'd probably say so, yeah. Like, on average, certainly not, everyone. Like, there are people who, are just average people who don't really know all that much about computers who use the Fediverse. Like, that's certainly a thing, but there are lots of reasons to get into using Fedi, and if you notice, people tend to arrive in waves. We had August 2018, the big Twitter migration wave, and then we've recently had the Tumblr wave. Like, people just come in waves because they heard about it and they were like, oh, this sounds cool. But at the same time, there are people who join it for a philosophical reason. Like, they hear that, oh, there's this, a decentralized network rather than Twitter or Facebook, where it's all controlled by one company running on their hardware, where they do what they want. Anyone can do what they want with their own instance, so they join for that reason. So there's a much higher density, I think, of tech people because they will join for tech reasons, but at the same time there are certainly people who just join for regular social networking reasons. But there's also a bit of a limit to that, because people who are, have the big accounts on Twitter and shit, like the 10k plus followers, I don't know, these people won't really want to use Mastodon or Fediverse or anything like that, because they'll say, well, barely anyone uses it, so I won't get my numbers, so I'm not going to bother. Like, Instagram, everyone uses Instagram, but not many people use PixelFed, so they don't bother using PixelFed, they just stick with Instagram.
Very, very broad question, then. Do you think Mastodon and the Fedi would benefit from changes that make entry more simple? And would it benefit if we just keep seeing this linear growth over time? Or if not linear, then spikes, so the way that people come over in these migrations. Is it better off the bigger it gets?
A lot of communities tend to get bad when they get big. It really depends how it works. Like, there are some communities that just get better as they get bigger with more resources, more people to work on it. But there are a lot that also, once they get big, people get power mad, or people start making changes to appeal to the masses, or at least what they think will appeal to the masses, and things just get bad. And for example, the implementation of the Explore page, I believe that was an attempt to kind of incentivize using Mastodon in the same way that Twitter analytics, where you get the bar graph and it tells you who clicked the links and all that shit, it isn't a way to incentivize using Twitter. You get you get a high scoreboard, and Gargaron does his best to make it easy to enter, but he does it in a very bad way, I believe. Like, by leaving registration on .social open, and by calling it the flagship instance, it makes it seem like you're supposed to join .social, and the other instances are just afterthoughts, in the same way that, like, if Google were to say that the Pixel line of smartphones is the main Android phone and how you're supposed to use Android, then it would make all the other phones seem inferior by comparison. And .social kind of does that by saying, like, this is the main instance, this is where you go to join Mastodon. And he does try to fight that a bit. Like, if you go to joinmastodon.org, it has a selector thing where you could choose an instance, but yeah, I don't think he's done a good enough job of getting the point across that it's supposed to be decentralized. You're supposed to spread out across instances, and because of that, .social has something ridiculous like 300,000 users on it, and it's like, it's not what it's supposed to be like.
The utility of it is effectively training wheels, perhaps, where in calling it flagship, my presumption, I might be off base on this. I think I am right, but as features are tested or rolled out, .social is perhaps where they are tested or incubated, right? Like that directory feature that you were talking about was a .social only thing to treat that as the testing environment, right?
Like .social is sorry, I'll let you finish.
I am just speculating about some of his rationale on that, in as much as I can get into Gargan's sweet head. It's also with him as the admin of it, and better able to, theoretically better able to control the experience. He can kind of customize it or try to steer it towards what he is envisioning the experience to be.
Yeah.
So to just circle back to how I started off the entire spiel, that the best thing that can be said about it is treating it like training wheels. It is an introduction. It is vanilla. It doesn't necessarily have a specific carved out culture or niche interest.
Right, yeah.
It's just there. I have likened it. My account has been there since the start, and I tell people it's like living in an airport terminal. It's busy. There are constantly people coming and going. I go wash myself in a sink in the men's room. I get breakfast at the Mastodon.social Sbarro, have a slice of pizza, and then I go shitpost.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do see what you're saying. Gargon does indeed use .social as kind of like the testing bed. He will, I don't want to say use the users as guinea pigs, but if something is in progress, it turns up there first, and it doesn't even show up on the GitHub for a while. Like, if he's working on a change, there are lots of ways to use Git and GitHub and like the sort. You can just commit stuff as soon as you do it, and just constantly have updates going to the page, or you can just work on it in chunks, and then once those chunks are done, commit that, and then work on the next chunk. And that's the way Argon does it. So he'll do something like the explore feature, and with the way I work on software, if I was working on the explore feature, you'd see like, tens, dozens of commits going up, like fixed a typo, fixed a bug, all this shit, just minor changes until I get it right and then use it. Whereas Gargon will make the explore page, put it on .social, and then put it on the Git. By the way that works, anything that comes to Mastodon will come to .social first. It can't be anywhere else first, because Gargon is the only person who has access to it. So to be very nerdy and make a reference that approximately 0 people will get, he is mixing the cathedral with the bazaar.
Lynne, you do seem a little fatigued and talking about some of these topics. Is the Mastodon experience good for you? Is it enjoyable? Is it frustrating?
It can be all of those at times. It varies. Sometimes it's great and wonderful, and there's, I love it. But other times I just get horribly burned out and just I feel awful because of it. Like yesterday, I kind of had a Linux shit thread, and then people were just kind of, I don't know if mocking is the right word, because it wasn't in mean spirit, but then people like kind of having a go at me about it, and like just making jokes about tech stuff and Linux stuff, and just making jokes about it and subtweeting me, and even replying to tell me to like, not to tell me to stop, but like to tell me I was wrong and stuff. And just, it kind of gets to me when I make a post about something that I'm really passionate about like that, and then I see everyone like mocking me for it, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I won't talk about my personal interests on my personal blog. But then other times I talk about it and people really like it. Like, I have a pinned like 1,200 to 1,400 character shitpost about Linux to my profile, and it's got like 300 boosts. Like, it is ridiculous. it's just I don't know whether people love or hate this content. It seems to fluctuate so much, and it's like I just want to talk about the stuff that I like, but frequently people don't want to hear that, and they'll mock me for it.
Is it people at large being fickle and either enjoying something one day and despising it the next? Or are there corners or pockets of the user base that are receptive to your humor and opinions, and other corners and pockets of the user base that want to start shit?
Definitely the latter one, yeah. But also, it'll depend on the tone of how I post it. Like, if I post something in a self-deprecating tone about, free software and, self-deprecating tone or a jokey tone, people are much more likely to like it than if I get serious or, God forbid, I criticize Windows. People get really touchy about that.
I find that mind-boggling, because if there is an online culture, if there is something that has been consistent ever since nerds started congregating on the internet to talk about Star Trek, shitting on Windows has seemed like the great unifier.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. Maybe I'm criticizing it wrong or something. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. Maybe I'm not putting dollar signs in Microsoft and people don't like that.
Is there a likelihood that people view having nuanced opinions about those topics, or making jokes about those topics, as the purview of a particular type of man, and they are defensive about anyone else being an interloper?
I don't like tech bros, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There's a very, very specific and particular archetype, I can't speak today, about the tech bro, and how they're very dismissive towards people, how they'll tell people they're, terrible for using non-free software, and people get burned a lot by that, because sometimes these people will just come into your mentions and be like, this is a screenshot from an iPhone. Don't you know that iPhones blah, 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 and people don't hear that, and it's one of the worst flavors of mansplaining. Yeah, and people get really soured on that, and maybe when they see me doing similar stuff, although I don't target people with it. Like, if I see someone making a post about Windows, I don't tend to jump into the mentions and be like, actually, it sucks and blah, blah, blah. Or if I do that, I do it in a very joking method, like self-deprecating or as an obvious joke.
You're not aggressively looking for trouble. When these encounters happen, they are more coming to your door.
Yeah, I'd say so. Same time, I suppose by posting something from my account, I'm aware of, the fact that I have followers, obviously, and when I post it, I'm aware that people will read it, so I am talking to people. I'm just not talking directly to a person when I say these things.
We've kind of touched on some of the negatives, some of the frustrations, some of the less pleasant interactions that happen on the platform. All of that said, do you think that the environment that exists today, is it still the best possible place for some of these conversations to be taking place? Like, is this for now the correct platform for some of these people to be congregating and connecting?
You mean the tech bros or the general public?
More than tech bros. I don't know that off the top of my head I can list what I would say are all of the niche users of Mastodon, but you have your tech bros, you have this huge furry contingent, you have Twitter leftists that came over in a migration, you have these inscrutable Tumblr kids, which I don't quite know what they're about, but I like the cut of their jib so far. For all the people that have ended up there, is it still basically the best social network for them to be on at this time?
Well, in terms of alternatives, there's not really much. I mean, there's Facebook, which but it's Facebook. Like, there's Twitter, which anyone who's left Twitter for any reason will know why people leave Twitter. I left Twitter. Like Twitter does a lot of horrible things. Like the admin will pal it up with Nazis, or he won't really understand what the user base wants. They're thinking of removing the like button. Like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing over at Twitter, but Twitter's not a good place either. Tumblr, well, they just banned nipples that identify as female on on the Day of Awareness for Violence Against Sex Workers as well. Like, my god, like, it's not so much that Mastodon and the Fediverse is like the pinnacle of social interaction, it's more that everyone else is terrible. I don't know much about Telegram, so I can't speak on that. There's Reddit, which...
Oh, no.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Reddit's just not a good place. And when you hear words like Reddicate, Reddit Gold, Reddit Silver, Reddit Bronze, because you can gold, silver, and bronze a post now, not just gold. Like, nobody wants to participate in this shit. There's 4chan, which, again, I don't have to say anything about that. There's 8chan, which is 4chan, but worse. There's not really anywhere to go that's actually good. So I think I'm not saying that Mastodon is only good because everywhere else sucks. Because Mastodon has its very good qualities. There's very good things about the people here. The community is much more tight knit. Like, with my 37 Twitter followers, or was it 38? I would never consider like joining a Discord group to talk with these people or talking with them outside of Twitter. Whereas here, I feel like these people are actually my friends, and rather than, like, I'll address people by their names, or I'll talk to some of them in Discords and private chats, or I'll make memes involving their faces. Like, I feel like I actually know these people and care about them rather than just random fucks trying to get attention. I even met Lucy through Fediverse, and she is now my girlfriend. So, the people here, I feel a lot more close with them, basically. I think the community is a lot more tight-knit, a lot more friendly and nice than other social networks. You don't have to have, like, a brand going on.
Grade Gargan.
He has been notoriously resistant to adding features that... I don't know if, like, save people is the right word, but features that protect people and make people safe. He can be resistant to those at times. Until he has it explained to him from a non-marginalized perspective, from a fellow tech bro.
Is that the history of incremental change, that people call out for a particular feature and it goes unheard until it comes from a direction that he wants to hear it from? Or
that does happen, and that sucks. And I feel like with Pleroma, people actually engage in conversations about this stuff. Like, Mastodon will just... Gargon will just post, like, Mastodon's going to get this feature now, and just, it happens. Whereas on Pleroma, they'll post, like, Kanini or someone will post, like, I'm thinking of adding this thing, or it does X, and then people reply and say, I think that's a good idea, or I don't really like that, or that's SJW trash, or, whatever the fuck. And then she'll listen to them and change it, and then it gets implemented, and people have had their say on it. Rather than the way it works on Mastodon, where you will open a GitHub issue with feature request and say, I'd like this to be added, please, and Gogon will say, no, it just doesn't happen. Like, there has been an issue ticket open for a request for formatting to be added to content on Mastodon, like, bold, italic, underline, that kind of stuff, since 2016, and it's still open, and it's still going, and people are still replying to it, and nothing has happened in the way of making it happen. Like, Mastodon supports it. The Fediverse itself has protocol, like, it's supported, and it would be very easy to implement, but he just doesn't. And I really wish Mastodon had formatting, like...
So, if it were all up to you, and you could unilaterally, and for the sake of the hypothetical, instantaneously implement 3 changes, what's your priority? What would you do?
Number one is full formatting, hugely helpful from a usability perspective. It would mean we could have bold text, we could divide posts into headings and subheadings, we could have links, like proper links rather than just pasting a URL, but that also goes against the philosophy of microblogging, 500 characters only and all that stuff. You don't really need to divide up posts with headers, yes, but I think that having bold, italic, underlined code blocks, all this could really help.
Okay, so we've got formatting in there at the number one with the next two changes. With the next two, what would you do?
Blocking needs to be better than the way it works, I think. If I were to block free speech extremist, which I have, my posts still go to free speech extremist because when they request something, they don't say, "Hi, I'm free speech extremist requesting your post." They just say, "Hi, I'm requesting your post." And Mastodon and Pleroma and all the software, they don't have a way to tell that it's free speech extremist. They'll just serve it up. But if you were to it wouldn't be too hard to do this. You could block freespeechextremist.com and then you could have it resolve the DNS and get the IP address and say, okay, well, if we get any requests from this IP address requesting our content, then it's obviously free speech extremist and we'll not allow it. And you can have a feature, you could just have like enable or disable IP blocking for this instance to truly make sure that your posts aren't ending up on some child porn instance, because I really don't want that happening with my posts, but they do end up on Smug Lolly because people there follow me and there's nothing I can do about it.
Okay, so more effective blocking, and that's one of the things that I've heard about, where even when not talking about whole loathsome instances, my understanding at this point is you could block a person out there on another instance or wherever, and although they would have a roadblock in attempting to view your content, if I am connected to them and I boost your content, it's just made it visible to them.
I have no idea why it does that. It really shouldn't, but for some reason it can do that, and like it's gotten to the point where people will like block you and then they'll send you a message saying, "Can you please block me as well?" Because we both have to block each other to prevent the posts from showing up, and that's just ridiculous. Like,
in going through the sequence here, if number one change, more robust formatting, number two change, more efficacious blocking, what is the third change that you would bring in?
I mean, those are the two major things I want. Better formatting and then better blocking with MRFs and all that stuff. Proper blocking. As for the third feature, I don't know. I feel like those are my two major complaints with the platform. Actually, this is a minor gripe, a very minor gripe. Faves and boosts don't really federate properly at all. I don't know if this is ActivityPub's fault or Mastodon's fault, but like, on my instance, it'll say a post got 10 faves, but on someone else's, it'll say it got 5 faves because they don't federate properly. Or, like, one really big annoyance I have is I made a post ages ago, like, boost this and I'll draw your profile picture, and that was a terrible idea. That was a horrible idea. But I wanted to actually do this, and it was getting to the point where scrolling through my notifications would cause, like, scrolling that far back through my notifications would just cause the browser to freeze and crash. So, and actually, general federation fluffery is very annoying. Like, some of this is unfixable. Like the fact that if you want to boost a post from KNZK, you've got to click the remote interact icon, then log into your instance, then it copies it over, and like that's really annoying. And then also the way that, and then some of this is fixable. Like if I view someone's profile and I haven't followed that person, only some of their posts will show up, because my instance is only aware of some of their posts, because those are the only ones that have been boosted to me, so those are the only ones I've seen. Like, it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to, when you click on someone's profile, just send a request and say, what are the last 40 toots? And just put those there. Because there are APIs to do that. I know that for a fact. I use those APIs for Mastodon ebooks. So, and this federation fuckery, it confuses and alienates a lot of people, because they'll look at it and say, why does it say I only have 20 boosts, even though yours says it has 25? And they'll reply, oh, it didn't federate properly. And they'll say, well, Twitter doesn't have this issue. And they're right, Twitter doesn't have that issue, because of the way that Twitter works. It's just a single website rather than a split-up thing. A federation, bullshit. That's something, I don't know. That'd be the most difficult thing to fix. Some parts of it you could fix, some parts of it are just inherent to the way it works and unfixable. But formatting, better blocking, better federation is what I would like to see.
A couple of questions here about your presence on the service, where I have taken advantage of asking you, given your technical aptitude, to break down, some of the way these things work and how they function and how they can be improved upon and what are the issues. But to spend a moment drilling down, when you post, when you engage, when you are using Mastodon, what is the appeal for you? What do you like getting out there and saying, or what kind of interactions do you like to have?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, I like the more close-knit community feel of it. How it feels like I'm having not really a conversation with friends, but more I'm posting things that I know friends will see. Like, when I post something silly and I see, like, I don't know, like Heelan or Matt or whoever favorites it, I'm like, I've just made someone who I actually know. Someone who I actually know has enjoyed this. Or if I get a reply from someone, I'll be like, hey, someone who I actually care about has replied and engaged with this content. Whereas on Twitter, if someone talks to me, I'm like, I don't really know this person. I guess it doesn't have nearly as much of an impact. But here, I can say something silly. Like, I'll say something purposefully awful, and people will be like, what the hell? And just, we'll have a fun back and forth where they're pretending to be horrified and I'm pretending to defend my horrible position. Or there are other times where I'll say something genuine and sincere and people will engage with me sincerely. It's just, there are so many ways that I use it, and all of them are just wonderful, and I just really enjoy it a lot.
You had made light mention of this earlier, but even just through being online and shitposting, you have bumbled into the current relationship that you're in?
Well, it's not the only current relationship that I'm in, but yes, with Lucy, I found her through the Fediverse, the way that she basically, she was following me for a while, and then she was, she was really crushing on me very, very hard, and she didn't really reply to me much, but then one day she sent me a message, like a direct message, and the gist of it was, hello, Lynn, I am very, very drunk. I have a crush on you. I think you're really cute and sweet. Don't say anything about this. Don't even reply to it. Goodbye.
Which
Something
you
like
have
that.
not done. To date, you've not uttered a single word about this exchange.
Well,
you have kept that solemn promise to your death.
Okay, well, she's gone back on that now, and she said that it's okay to talk about it, and she talks about it herself a lot, so...
There's a universality to her reaching out like that. To quote the bard, William Shakespeare, sometimes you have to risk it for the biscuit.
Right, yes. Yes, of course. And she did indeed risk it, and yes, now we are in a relationship. She is my girlfriend. I'm very happy with her. She's very happy with me, I hope. And things are going well, and it's nice.
So I want to thank you for breaking down some of those issues. We are going to take a break, and then we will come back and wrap up the show. Hi everybody. This episode is long as shit, so there's no elaborate bit here. I'm just popping in to press my dope-ass button again.
Jack Doris has landed.
And to say that I really enjoyed speaking with Lynne this past week and talking to Sel the prior week. With these two interviews done, I'm going to try to figure out if this is a thing I'm actually doing, or I'm ironically doing, or whatever. The whole endeavor is basically a joke that gradually got out of hand, and its legitimacy is solely based on how much interest actually exists in listening to me chat with people crack jokes, and explore burgeoning Mastodon culture. So in the meantime, you're totally encouraged to hit me up if you have feedback or thoughts about the value of an ongoing series, or if anyone out there enjoys listening like half as much as I dig just talking to people. One smart piece of feedback I've received so far was the idea that a Fediverse-centered series should exist on PeerTube. That's absolutely an idea I want to implement if this is going to be something that moves forward. We're going to get back into the conclusion of the show, have a really illuminating and informative discussion of cryptographic security. Please remember to follow Lynnesbian at fedi.lynnesbian.space and use the hashtag NBTT for posts to harass me into purchasing a better mic, and for spamming Gargan with polite requests to talk to me in an interview about prog metal and why American lasagna is so fucking watery.
Jack Doris has landed.
Back to the show. Welcome back. We are still talking with Lynne. Lynne, how are you doing?
Quite well, yeah. This has been more serious than I expected, but I'm doing well, I think.
It's only going to get more serious, more dry, and more technical from here. Bear with me as we go through the next couple of points. I am going to try to describe a couple of things that I have a crude understanding of. In my explanations, I invite you to correct or clarify. So, to start, a hash in cryptographic terms is the result of if you take a string, if you take information, throw it through an algorithm, and then it spits out something that for all intents and purposes looks like gibberish. It's a series of characters or integers or whatnot that can't necessarily just be run back through to determine what the original information was. Correct?
Right. Yes.
Now, there is something called the SHA, the SHA, and that's established by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. That's the secure hash algorithm that they have designated as the algorithm for doing this cryptographic security. So there was the original SHA, and let me see, so that was 1993, and there have been iterations since then, the newest being SHA-3, where I think between 2007 and 2012, there was a competition held by the National Institute of Standards and Technology where groups would come together with their particular algorithm to pit against each other through a series of tests to determine which one would be superior, which one would eventually become SHA-3. And some of these were just independent groups of people with an interest in security or computer science, and some of them were teams from academic institutions, and some of them were teams from tech companies like IBM. But the call went out there, and then gradually through each culling, they were weeded out. They would find issues or errors with them where they were not up to snuff. And then it resulted in the one winner that is currently SHA-3. I may not be pronouncing this correctly. The winner called Kesek or Kechek. So that all tracks with your understanding. That thing that I just put out there for everyone to listen to, that's all accurate enough? Yes?
You know a lot more about that than I do. I don't actually know that much details about the specifics of the SHA algorithm selection process, but yeah, sounds believable enough.
So, stick with me on this. Celebrity perfumes are a gajillion-dollar industry where people who are already famous for doing whatever they do in the entertainment industry, be they actors or actresses or performers or musicians or athletes, will slap their name onto a licensed perfume, and people will buy it and elegantly spritz it into the air before walking through, and then, I guess, stink of whatever the aesthetic or the je ne sais quoi of that famous person is. Does that also comport with your understanding of celebrity perfumes?
Yes, that is how I understand it to be.
I'm going to pose to you a series of choices. In these choices, one of the options is going to be one of the algorithm entrants in that competition that was held by the National Institute for Standards and Technology.
Okay.
The other choice is going to be a celebrity perfume.
Alright.
I am going to ask with each set if you can determine which is which. And depending on how you do on this, I can bestow the highest accolade, the most sacred of honor that an American can award to a non-American, the Golden Burger of Valor.
Mm-hmm.
You feeling confident?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Blue Midnight Wish and White Diamonds.
Is the first one a perfume and the second one a hashing algorithm?
I am afraid that Blue Midnight Wish is an algorithm. White Diamonds is a celebrity scent from Elizabeth Taylor.
Okay.
Ready?
I am ready as I'll ever be.
Crush and Fugue.
God, is... is Fugue the algorithm?
Fugue is the algorithm. It was created by IBM. Crush is a celebrity scent from Rihanna.
Okay.
Alright, are you feeling confident, or does this seem like this is going to be kind of hard as it goes?
Well, I've so far had 50% accuracy, which is about as good as a coin flip, so promising.
Next one. Spectral hash or curious. Think carefully on this one. Think carefully. Spectral hash or curious.
Is curious spelled just normally, or is it spelled weirdly?
Good question, because both of these have capability for that to happen. Curious is spelled normally.
Spatial hash or curious?
Spectral hash.
Spectral hash or curious? I feel like you're playing 4D checkers here, and it'll be like that scene in Princess Bride where the guy's trying to think like 30 steps ahead and he just gets it wrong anyway. I feel like no matter what I do, no matter how many steps ahead I try to think, I'm gonna get it wrong. And even if I try to like counter for the fact that I'm gonna choose the wrong one and choose the opposite one that I was gonna choose, I will still get it wrong.
Lynn, you're stalling. I know what you're doing.
Is spectral is curious the hashing algorithm?
Curious is a celebrity scent by Britney Spears.
God damn it.
Spectral hash, surprisingly enough, is the hashing algorithm. Moving on. Aurora or Radiance.
Oh, come on. Aurora versus Radiance. Okay, is Radiance the algorithm?
Radiance is also a celebrity scent by Britney Spears. She has like 24 of these shits.
Now I am worse than a coin flip. Oh, with 25% accuracy.
So next one.
So far it's not looking good.
Midnight Heat or Cheetah.
What was that last one, sorry?
Cheetah. Like the kitty cat. Like the larger kitty cat. Cheetah. Meow.
Oh, cheetah. Okay.
Meow.
Right, yes. That one. Okay, the vocals helped.
Or Midnight Heat.
Midnight Heat or cheetah. Is it cheetah, the algorithm?
Cheetah is the algorithm. Midnight Heat is from Beyonce. Tangle, like a knot, like tangle, or Black Star.
Tangle or Black Star. See, I'm trying to think, like, what are the technical descriptions of what you do with the hashing algorithm? Like, what kind of technical words would you expect to see in a name? But tangle, like, none of these words have anything to do with it. Like, white diamond or Blue Midnight, whichever one it was. Like that has nothing.
When I think of computer security, I think of Blue Midnight Wish. Thank you very much.
Is Black Star the perfume?
Black Star is the perfume. It is from Avril Lavigne.
I'm really using my technical knowledge here. I'm really being put to the test. If this was on an exam, I would have failed that exam.
Yeah, no, you have 3 more here. You can.
That seems like such an embarrassing thing to say. Like, I got given an exam on whether something is a hashing algorithm or a celebrity perfume, and I failed.
The finger of blame is squarely on the weird computer science nerds who think that they are coming up with badass, intimidating names for their algorithms, and really they're just on the same footing with Britney Spears and Avril Lavigne. Last 3 here. Echo or Music Box?
Oh my god. It's just like, do you wanna hash this with SHA512 or CRC32, MD5, or a Music Box? It's like, Music Box or Echo? I mean, Echo, that's just blatantly wrong because a hash doesn't echo the data, but I mean, neither is Midnight Blue Star Wish. That is Music Box the... I mean, that's an artsy-fartsy name. It could be a perfume.
Music Box is the perfume. It is from Kylie Minogue.
Yay.
2 more.
Oh, wait, she's Australian, isn't she?
You know her, presumably, right?
On the block from me.
You see her at the meetings?
Being in Australia, down the block means 300 k's away, but yeah.
So that's like a metric mile, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's about 2 nautical miles.
Okay. Flight Challenge or Sandstorm?
These names are ridiculous. Flight Challenge
or Sandstorm?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I know this is a very serious topic and I shouldn't be making light of it. Flight Challenge or Sandstorm? Okay, Flight Challenge is just such a terrible name. It like, when you make a hashing algorithm, you have to put at least some thought into it, so I'm gonna say... But then again, tech nerds are terrible at naming things, like, that fucking social network named Mastodon. Like, what a stupid name.
Mastodon is a celebrity scent from Gargan.
Oh god.
I think the tagline is Rub the Tusk.
Is Flight Challenge the perfume?
Flight Challenge is the perfume. It is from Michael Jordan, famed basketball player. We're coming down. This is the last one here.
I've been keeping track. I assume this one makes it or breaks it.
Yes.
Because my life is like a movie.
None of the other ones were scored. That was the warm-up portion. This is the only one that awards points. Blake! And I pronounce it like that because it's all caps. Or Siren. Again, that's Blake!
Blake.
Or Siren.
Actually heard of the Blake hashing algorithm, so I'm gonna go with that one, and I hope I'm not misremembering that.
Holy shit, you got it. You actually used technical knowledge to solve it. Blake is the hashing algorithm, and Siren is from Paris Hilton.
So now I get the golden cheeseburger.
The golden burger of valor, or whatever it is I said a few minutes ago. Lynn, thank you for coming by to the studio tonight. Are there any shout-outs you want to give? Is there anything that you want to say that you want to use this platform for before we wrap up?
God, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble getting over how ridiculous some of those names were. Okay. Yes. I will use the platform of Nothing But the Toot, episode 2, to say, it is not a cricket paddle, it is a cricket bat. It is ridiculous to call it a paddle. If you call it a paddle, then you should also call a tennis racket a tennis paddle. And obviously you don't do that, because you are not a buffoon. So it is a cricket bat.
I see nothing controversial about that. I don't know how anyone could disagree. And on that note, everybody have a good evening. Good night.
See ya. Bye.